My name is Shelley Whitner. I'm 36 years old. If I had to point to the exact moment my life split in two, the before and after, it would be the night Martin confessed. The night I stopped being a wife and started being a stranger in my own story. We had been married for 2 years together for 6, a quiet, ordinary couple with matching mugs, routines, and playlists. I thought ordinary meant safe. But that night, when Martin came home later than usual, I knew before he opened his mouth that something had changed. His hands trembled when he poured himself a drink. He didn't look at me, not even when he said, "Shelley, I need to tell you something." The words fell like bricks. He'd been seeing someone else, a coworker. It just happened, he said, the way people talk about rainstorms or accidents. My mind didn't process the betrayal right away. I was too busy cataloging his tone, his neat phrasing, the way his voice cracked, only when he said her name. For a moment, I thought I might scream. Instead, I stood up, walked to the window, and stared at my reflection in the glass. So this is what disappointment looks like, I thought. When I told my family, I expected them to be furious for me, especially my younger brother Nicholas. He and Martin had been friends in college, sure, but I was his sister. Surely blood meant more than some old drinking buddy. It didn't. Nicholas already knew. When I called to tell him the marriage was over, he sighed, like a man who'd been dreading this moment. "Shelley," he said, his tone heavy with fake patience. He came clean because he wants to fix it. "Don't throw it all away over a mistake." A mistake, I repeated. He slept with another woman for months, Nick. "I'm not excusing him," he said quickly. "But he's trying. People mess up. Maybe you could talk to someone together. Give it another chance." His words weren't cruel, but they landed harder than any insult could have. I realized in that instant that Nicholas had already picked his side. I laughed bitterly. "So you'd rather keep your drinking buddy than your sister? Got it." He scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. I'm not choosing anyone. I just think you're overreacting." Overreacting. That was the last real conversation we had. In the following weeks, the divorce finalized, with surgical precision assets, divided rings returned, apologies exchanged like receipts. Martin moved to Philadelphia with his new wife. Yes, the same woman, and Nicholas was there at the wedding. My mother later accidentally mentioned it over brunch, like she was talking about the weather. I remember the fork slipping from my hand, the clang echoing through the kitchen. "He attended?" I asked quietly. She looked guilty, but only for a moment. "He didn't want to upset you," she said. "He thought it was better to just go and get it over with." Get it over with, as if betrayal were an errand. That was 5 years ago. Since then, I've built walls so high, not even guilt could climb them. I bought a small townhouse on the edge of the city. I buried myself in my work, stopped celebrating anniversaries, and stopped answering family group chats. Then a few nights ago, I got a call. It was past midnight, the kind of hour when the phone only rings for bad news. The screen lit up with Mom. For a second, I thought maybe something had happened to Dad. But her voice wasn't frantic, it was cautious, rehearsed. "Shelley, honey, it's about your brother," she said. I froze. "What about him?" A pause, then a sigh. "He's not doing well. The business he started collapsed. He's been evicted. We think he needs somewhere to stay for a while, maybe with you." Silence filled the line. I could hear Dad coughing faintly in the background, probably listening in. "You're joking," I finally said. "No," she said quickly. "He's too proud to move back in with us. We thought maybe you could—" "Stop!" My voice came out colder than I intended. "We haven't spoken in 5 years. He's the reason I don't have a brother anymore." "He's still family," she whispered. I wanted to laugh. Family. That word had done more harm to me than any enemy ever could. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, forcing calm. "But no, I can't help him. Not now. Not ever." She sighed again, the kind of sigh that carried disappointment like perfume. "I knew you'd say that," she murmured. "You've always been stubborn." When the call ended, I sat in the dark for a long time, staring at the blank TV screen. The reflection of my own face looked distant, unfamiliar, like someone watching a story she no longer recognized. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they'd let it go. I was wrong. Because the next morning my phone rang again, and again, and again. Each time the same name flashed across the screen. Mom. And beneath it, a message waiting to be opened. "You're his sister. Don't let pride destroy your family." I turned the phone face down, but the vibration wouldn't stop. It was as if the past had found my number again and wasn't going to stop calling until I answered. By the third day, I stopped answering my phone altogether. The calls came like clockwork morning, lunch, evening, as if my parents had set alarms to remind me of my sins. Each voicemail sounded a little more desperate, a little more guilt-soaked. Shelley, he's your brother. He just needs time. Shelley, don't be cruel. You're better than this. And finally, from my father, rarely a man of emotion. If you ever cared about this family, you'll help him. It was strange. They hadn't sounded that concerned when I was crying through a divorce 5 years ago. Back then, my pain was private business. But now, Nicholas's downfall was apparently a family emergency. That night, I sat in my kitchen with the lights off. The only glow came from the phone on the table. Its screen lit up again, Mom calling. I let it ring, but her voice filled the voicemail anyway. Shelley, please. We raised you to have a kind heart. Don't turn cold now. I poured myself a glass of wine I didn't really want. My reflection in the dark window looked like someone else, someone tired of being the strong one. Then, against my better judgment, I called her back. She picked up immediately. Shelley, I'm here, I said, my voice flat. Say what you need to say. Oh, thank God, she exhaled. I knew you'd come around. I didn't say that, I replied. A pause. Then the familiar tone, soft, manipulative, polished from years of practice. Your brother's in a difficult place. His business failed, he's in debt, and his girlfriend can't keep him. He's staying with a friend, but it's not sustainable. He's too proud to ask for help. And you think I should offer it? Well, she hesitated. You have that spare room. You live alone. It would only be temporary. Mom, I said slowly. You do remember he called me petty and immature for cutting off a cheater, right? That was years ago, she said quickly. You were both emotional. People change. No people reveal, I snapped. And he revealed exactly who he was. There was silence. Then softer, Shelley. You're the older one, the stronger one. If you don't bend first, no one will. That word stronger felt like a chain disguised as praise. My parents had used it my entire life to justify every burden they placed on me. When Nicholas crashed Dad's car, I was the strong one who had to apologize for him. When he failed college classes, I was the responsible one who should tutor him. And when he betrayed me by standing beside my cheating husband, I was the mature one expected to forgive. I set the wine glass down carefully, afraid it might crack under my grip. I'm done bending, I said. Mom sighed a long, disappointed sound that made me feel 12 years old again. You've changed, Shelley. You used to care about family. I wanted to say family stopped caring about me first, but instead I said goodnight and hung up. I thought that would end it. I was wrong. The next morning there were 6 missed calls, then 7, then 10. Each message more dramatic than the last, how my father's blood pressure was rising from stress, how my mother couldn't sleep, how Nicholas was apparently on the verge of living on the streets. That evening, I took a long drive just to clear my head. I ended up in front of my childhood home without meaning to. The house looked smaller than I remembered. The garden overgrown, the porch light dim. Memories pressed against me like ghosts, Nicholas and I racing our bikes down the driveway. Mom yelling from the porch, Dad pretending not to smile. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for them, for all of us. But then I remembered the violin. I was 9. Nicholas had snapped my violin bow in half after I wouldn't let him touch it. When Mom came into the room, she found me crying. Nicholas hid behind her legs and said, "It broke by accident." I'll never forget what she said next. "Shelley, he's just a boy. You're older. You should have watched him." That was the first time I learned what family fairness meant in the Whitner household. I looked at that house one last time before driving off. Back home, I ignored every message until late evening when Dad's voice broke through the voicemail static. You don't have to like him, Shelley. Just help. He's your blood. Blood. That word again, as if DNA excused everything. I deleted the message, set the phone down, and tried to focus on a movie. But halfway through the phone vibrated once more. I almost didn't look, but then I saw the message preview. If you won't call him, we'll come talk to you in person. I stared at it for a long moment, the screen's glow sharp against the dark room. I didn't realize it then, but that text wasn't a threat. It was a promise. Because 3 nights later, they actually showed up. It was almost 10 p.m. when the headlights cut across my driveway. At first, I thought it was a neighbor pulling in until I saw the silhouettes in the car. 2 figures, still as statues. My heart sank. I didn't have to look twice. My parents had arrived. They didn't text, didn't call. They just appeared like ghosts materializing after being summoned by guilt. I stood at my front window for a full minute before deciding not to open the door. I didn't owe them a confrontation. I had given them my words, my silence, my explanations. None of it had been enough. But then the knock came, soft, then louder. Shelley opened the door. My mother's voice called calm, but with that practiced edge, the one that always made not obeying feel like betrayal. I didn't move. She knocked again harder. We're not here to fight. We just need to talk. I could hear my father's voice next, deeper, measured. Come on, Shelley. We're your parents. Stop acting like a stranger. Stop acting like a stranger. That one stung because that's exactly what I had become. A stranger in my own family. Finally, I unlocked the door, but didn't step aside. What do you want? Mom forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We just wanted to see you. You haven't been answering our calls. I told you to stop calling. She looked over my shoulder into the house. You've lost weight, she murmured. You're not eating properly, are you? I ignored it. You came all the way here just to check my diet. Dad sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. We came because we need to talk about Nicholas. There's nothing to talk about. Yes, there is, Mom insisted, stepping forward. He's in trouble. Real trouble. He's been evicted, Shelley. His girlfriend can't keep him, and he refuses to live with us. He needs a place to stay. I clenched my jaw. I already told you. This isn't about grudges anymore, she interrupted, her voice cracking with theatrical emotion. He's your brother. He's humiliated. Do you know how hard it is for a man to ask for help? I almost laughed. He hasn't asked me for anything. You have. Dad's tone hardened. Because we know you. You won't listen unless someone forces you to. You've become impossible to reach, Shelley. There it was, the accusation disguised as concern. The same tone they used when I moved out after the divorce, when I refused to attend family gatherings, when I dared to protect my peace. Maybe I'm impossible because I've spent years trying to be reasonable, I said quietly. Mom frowned. We didn't raise you to be heartless. That word heartless cracked something open inside me. You didn't raise me to be heartless, I said, my voice trembling now. You raised me to be silent, to always fix things, to forgive people who never deserved it. Don't twist this into something it's not, Dad said sharply. We're talking about your brother, not ancient history. Ancient history. To them, my marriage, my pain, my humiliation were just old news. Forgotten chapters in a book they'd rather not reopen. I took a step back. You need to leave. Mom's eyes narrowed, her tone shifting from pleading to cutting. You know Nicholas was right about you. The air thickened. I stared at her. What did you just say? He said you always make everything about yourself, she continued, voice trembling with restrained anger. And maybe he's right. Maybe Martin left because no one could stand your pride for long. It felt like a slap. For a second I couldn't breathe. My chest burned. You have no idea what you're saying, I whispered. Oh, I do, she said softly. I've seen this coldness in you before. You think you're punishing Nicholas, but you're only proving him right. You always need to win. Dad muttered, Let's go, Elizabeth. But she wasn't finished. Maybe that's why he chose Martin over you, she added. At least he didn't make everything about his ego. The sound that escaped my throat wasn't a cry, it was something deeper. A sound I hadn't made since the day I found Martin's texts. Get off my porch, I said. She blinked, startled. Shelley, now! When they didn't move, I slammed the door shut with all the strength I had left. Inside, my hands were shaking. The walls felt smaller. My pulse pounded in my ears like distant thunder. I walked to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and it slipped shattering against the floor. Water spread across the tiles, glistening in the dim light like spilled tears. I sank to my knees, the sound of the shattering echoing through the empty house. Minutes passed before I stood again. I picked up my phone, hands trembling, and blocked both their numbers. It felt final, heavy, but beneath the heaviness was relief. For the first time in years, silence. The next few days were eerily calm. No calls, no text, no guilt traps. I started to believe they had finally accepted my decision. Until one night, 3 soft knocks echoed through the silence. I froze, looked at the clock, 11:42 p.m. I stepped closer to the door. Through the peephole, I saw the faint outline of a figure standing just beyond the porch light. And this time, it wasn't my parents. At first, I thought I was imagining it. The knock, the silhouette, the quiet shifting of feet outside my door. But then came another knock, firmer this time. I whispered to myself, don't open it. Yet I did. The porch light flickered to life, revealing both of them, my parents standing there again. The same strained smiles, the same tired eyes. But something in their faces was different now. Desperation. Shelley, my mother began, please don't call the police. Just let us talk for 5 minutes. I told you. 5 minutes, my father cut in sharply. That's all we ask. Then we'll leave. I crossed my arms, keeping the door half closed. You've been told to stop coming here. He looked past me into the dark hallway of my house like he was searching for something, or maybe searching for the daughter he thought he could still control. Mom clutched her purse tightly. It's not about Nicholas this time. I almost laughed. That would be a first. No, she said quickly. It's about us, about money. Money. She nodded, eyes watery. Now that Nicholas is living with us again, your father and I are struggling to manage. You know we're retired. It's only temporary, just until he's back on his feet. I stared at her, trying to process the absurdity. So you're asking me to pay for my brother, the same brother who called me selfish and cut me out of his life. My father's jaw tightened. We're asking you to help your parents. There it was, the old weapon obligation wrapped in guilt. Mom's voice softened. We're not saying you have to see him. You can just transfer the money. We'll handle the rest. I exhaled through my nose. You drove here at midnight to ask for a handout. She flinched. Shelley, please don't talk like that. We wouldn't ask if we had another choice. You did have a choice, I said coldly. You chose him, over and over again. Dad stepped forward, his patience thinning. You think you're better than us because you have a job and a house. But when your marriage fell apart, we were there, weren't we? I looked him dead in the eye. No, you weren't. He blinked as if he'd forgotten that part of the story, or rewritten it to make himself the hero. Mom's tone shifted again, trembling, half tearful, half threatening. We did everything for you, Shelley. We gave you a good education, supported you when you were lost. And this is how you repay us, by turning your back. I clenched my fists. You raised me to believe love was conditional, that it came with debts. I'm just paying them off by staying away. Her tears stopped, instantly replaced by cold fury. You've become cruel. I felt something inside me snap, not from anger, but exhaustion. Years of being the scapegoat, the peacekeeper, the one who swallowed pain so others could stay comfortable. I'm done, I said, stepping back inside. Leave my property now. But they didn't move. Dad's voice rose. You can't treat us like this. Watch me. Mom's tone turned pleading again. Shelley, don't do this. We're family. No, I cut her off. You stopped being my family when you stood beside the man who broke me. You stopped when you excused Nicholas's betrayal. You stopped when you made my pain an inconvenience. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Then my mother whispered, if you close this door now, don't expect us to ever forgive you. I almost smiled. I stopped needing your forgiveness years ago. And then I closed the door. I expected them to leave. They didn't. I could still hear their muffled voices outside, arguing, pacing, refusing to go. My pulse was racing now. I grabbed my phone hands, trembling, and said it out loud, mostly to convince myself I'm calling the police. I dialed. When I told the operator my parents were trespassing and refusing to leave, the dispatcher hesitated, probably unsure how to handle family as a threat, but she promised to send a patrol car. Minutes later, blue lights washed over my living room walls. The sirens stayed off, but the light spun across the curtains, bathing the room in a strange electric calm. Through the peephole, I saw two officers approach. My mother started crying immediately. My father tried to reason, gesturing angrily toward the house. I couldn't hear the words, but I knew the script. She's overreacting. She's unstable. We're her parents. After a few minutes, one of the officers knocked. Ma'am, they're leaving now. Everything okay inside? I nodded, though my throat felt tight. I'm fine, thank you. When the cruiser pulled away, the night fell quiet again, eerily quiet. For the first time, I realized I wasn't shaking out of fear. I was shaking out of freedom. I sat on the couch in the darkness, letting the adrenaline settle. The clock ticked past midnight. My phone lay beside me, face down, silent. Finally, silence. I thought it was over. But the universe has a cruel sense of humor, because the very next morning my phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. And when I answered, a distorted voice whispered, "You'll regret what you did to your parents." At first, I told myself it was a prank, a wrong number, a glitch, anything but what I knew deep down, that my parents had found a new way to reach me. The first call came that morning. The voice warped and low, saying those 7 words, "You'll regret what you did to your parents." I hung up, my pulse hammering in my throat. I didn't recognize the number. I blocked it immediately. But by the next day, 2 more calls came. Different numbers, different voices. One male, one female. Both saying the same thing, "You'll regret it." Each time I blocked them. Each time more came. Then came the texts. "You think you're safe, family doesn't forget, ungrateful daughter." I reported them to the carrier, changed my privacy settings, bought a new SIM card. Still, the messages found their way through. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the house sounded like a footstep. Every buzz of my phone sent a cold shiver through my body. It didn't take long for paranoia to turn into fear. One night, while brushing my teeth, I heard a noise outside, faint but deliberate, like gravel shifting under slow steps. I froze. Through the bathroom window, I could see the faint shape of a car parked across the street. Headlights off, engine idling. I stood there, staring into the darkness, toothbrush trembling in my hand. Then, as if sensing I was watching, the car drove away. By morning, I called my lawyer. I told him everything: the calls, the texts, the threats, the visit. His response was immediate and firm: file for a restraining order. Today. He walked me through the process. It was mechanical clinical, the legal version of emotional triage. When we filed, I expected to feel relief. But all I felt was grief, the kind that settles low in your chest, heavy and wordless. Because even though I had done the right thing, I couldn't escape the question that gnawed at me. How did it come to this? How did family become something I had to defend myself against? A week passed in uneasy quiet. No calls, no texts. The silence was almost suspicious. Then, out of nowhere, my phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't an unknown number. It was Nicholas. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. His name looked foreign, like a word from a language I used to speak but had forgotten. Against my better judgment, I answered. Shelley. His voice was calm, controlled, too controlled. What the hell did you do? My stomach dropped. Excuse me. I just talked to Mom. You filed a restraining order against them. I closed my eyes. Of course they told you. They're devastated, he said sharply. They can't believe you go that far. They're your parents, Shelley. They showed up at my house. Repeatedly. They harassed me. What did you expect me to do? Bake them cookies. He exhaled hard. They were desperate. You pushed them to it. I laughed, but it came out bitter. You're unbelievable. You're the one who caused all this, Nicholas. You and your pride. You didn't just ruin your life, you let them weaponize mine. Don't twist this, he snapped. They were trying to protect me. From what consequences? Silence. Then quieter. You've always had this victim complex. That one landed like the blade. For a moment, I couldn't find my words. You really don't get it, do you? They didn't just protect you, they chose you, every single time. Because you make it impossible to be close to you, he said. You hold grudges like trophies. I almost hung up. Almost. But something in me, maybe the last thread of hope, needed to say this. Nick, they lied to you. They told me you needed money, that you were drowning. They begged me to bail you out. I refused because it wasn't my job to fix your life. So they came here, at midnight. Twice. That's why I filed. The silence on the other end stretched. I could hear him breathing slow, unsteady. They said what? You heard me. They've been using you to manipulate me. You didn't ask for their help, did you? He didn't answer, but I could hear it, the faint tremor in his breath, the sound of someone realizing they've been played. Then, without a word, he hung up. I stared at my phone for a long time, half expecting him to call back, but he didn't. By the next morning, I started hearing whispers from distant relatives, cousins, aunts, people who hadn't called me in years. Apparently, Nicholas had packed his things and moved out of our parents' house. They'd had a blowout argument when he found out what they'd done. He accused them of lying, of using him, of humiliating him. And for the first time, he saw what I had seen all along. The guilt games, the control, the favoritism dressed up as love. The family group chat went silent after that. One of my cousins texted me later that night. Your parents are furious. They're saying you turned Nick against them. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for once, the truth was doing the talking. It's strange how quiet revenge can be. No screaming, no scheming. Just the quiet satisfaction of watching karma do what you no longer have to. I went to bed that night with the window open, the city breeze washing over me. For the first time in years, I didn't dream of arguments or apologies. I just slept. And in the morning, I watered the small plant on my windowsill, the one that had been wilting for weeks. It was still alive. So was I. For the first time in years, my mornings were quiet. No calls, no guilt, no ghosts at my door. I'd wake up, make coffee, and listen to the hum of my old refrigerator, the kind of silence that used to make me anxious, but now felt sacred. It had been 2 weeks since Nicholas's last call. I didn't expect to hear from him again. But one evening, while I was closing my laptop after work, my phone lit up with a text from him. I moved out. You were right. No apology, no explanation, just that. I stared at it for a while before replying. I didn't want to be right, Nick. I just wanted peace. He didn't respond. But that short exchange, those 7 words, did something inside me. It felt like an invisible thread that had been pulled taut for years had finally snapped. Later that week, my aunt called. She never called unless someone was dying or getting married. Her tone was somewhere between sympathy and disbelief. Your parents have been telling everyone you turned Nicholas against them, she said. They're saying you brainwashed him, that you're the reason he stopped speaking to them. I let her talk. I didn't correct her. There was nothing to correct. Everyone was seeing the truth, whether they wanted to or not. Word spread through the family fast. My parents went from the respected couple on the hill to the scandal everyone whispered about at Sunday dinners. Invitations dried up. Old friends stopped visiting. And for the first time, they were the ones left out in the cold. I didn't rejoice. Not really. Watching karma work is quieter than people think. It doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like an old house, finally collapsing under the weight of its own lies. A few days later, I got another text, this time from an unknown number. For a split second, dread crawled up my spine. But when I opened it, I saw only 2 words. I'm sorry. No name. But I knew it was Nicholas. I could almost hear his voice, quiet, uncertain, humbled. I typed back, I forgive you, but I'm not coming back. Then I put my phone face down and left it there. That night, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the city lights flicker in the distance. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. Somewhere a dog barked. The world kept moving with or without the Whitner family drama. It's funny when people talk about revenge, they imagine confrontation, shouting, chaos. But the real revenge is silence. It's the peace that terrifies the ones who thrived on your reaction. Since the restraining order, my parents haven't tried to reach me again. I sometimes picture them sitting together in their dim living room, wondering how everything went so wrong. Maybe they still think I'm the villain in their story. Maybe that's easier than facing what they did. Either way, I've stopped caring about the version of me that lives in their memories. A month passed, then 2. Life began to feel ordinary again. I worked, I traveled, I laughed more easily. The nights no longer echoed with guilt or fear. One morning, while watering the plant on my windowsill, the same one that had barely survived through it all, I noticed something. Tiny buds, pale green and trembling, had begun to appear on its stems. I stood there smiling to myself. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Sometimes healing doesn't look like grand closure or teary reconciliations. Sometimes it's just a plant that decides to live again. I took a deep breath and whispered, "We made it." And maybe that's all the justice I'll ever need. Not revenge, not apologies. Just the quiet knowledge that I survived the kind of love that wanted to destroy me. Because in the end, I didn't need karma to punish them. They punished themselves by losing the one person who still believed family could be something worth saving.